8:07 on WMAL, where Washington comes to talk. I am Larry O'Connor alongside Brian Wilson, starting you off
I'm right here.
every day right here at Mornings on the Mall. Joining us now is our friend Tucker Carlson. He's the editor-in-chief of the Daily Caller, or as Senator Harry Reid would like to call it, consider the source. Harry Reid was pretty disparaging of the Daily Caller's coverage of the Senator Bob Menendez scandals, but Tucker, it seems to really be moving along here. When you say consider the source, you have to consider the FBI and the New York Times and the rest of journalism catching up with you.
Well, that's true. We first broke the story back in October, and it was roundly ignored by every other news organization pretty much in America, with a couple of exceptions. And then last week, Harry Reid, in effect denounced us. It seems to me, though, that's a violation of the most basic Washington rule, which is before you make a public statement on something, you probably ought to have some familiarity with what the facts are. And he got out ahead of himself, and he's not saying that now. Trust me. He gave a statement the other day, I think yesterday, in which he said, we're going to let the investigations run their course. But of course, his reflexive reaction was, they're right wingers and they don't worship Obama, therefore they're lying. I mean, it was silly.
Well, and hardly a vote of confidence from the White House either. Jay Carney would not come out and say that they support Senator Menendez, and we just mentioned, actually, we talked about this in the last hour. Senator Menendez is going to be critical for the president's strategy to push his immigration reforms through. Where do you see this going, and where do you see the disposition of the senator moving forward?
Well, I'm not sure. I mean, unlike Harry Reid, I'm unwilling to make sweeping generalizations like that without having a certain outcome. I would say two things. One, we haven't run the course on these stories. There's a lot more there, and we'll be coming out with them. And what effect that'll have, I can't foresee that. But I can say, second, that there are an awful lot. I mean, more than two Democrats high-level Democrats who have called us to help with the story.
Wow.
So it's not, this is not just a right-wing conspiracy. There are a number of people involved in forwarding the story who think it's worth telling.
All right. So I heard you say there's a lot more that's going to be coming out on the story.
Yeah.
If we were to watch this story closely, where might the next shoes drop?
Well, look, the allegation is that Senator Menendez flew down to the Dominican Republic, probably for a bunch of different reasons, but while there, slept with underage prostitutes. I mean, that's sex tourism, and for a guy who's taken a pretty strong, and it's also, by the way, illegal, who's taken a strong stand against human trafficking, it's a little bit surprising. That's the allegation. We've interviewed people. Of course, we interviewed two of the prostitutes, but we've interviewed a number of other people with knowledge of this, and all those interviews suggest that it's true. So that's a huge problem. And then there's the secondary problem of what the senator was doing, flying down with a campaign contributor who's now under FBI investigation. His offices were raided by the FBI. So I mean, who knows where these stories go? But there's an awful lot there, and we're getting a lot of assistance from people who you'd think would be supporting Senator Menendez, which is a bad sign, I would say.
That is a very interesting thing that you just said. You're actually getting help from Democrats?
Yes.
Are these
that's not a hollow boast either.
Are these elected officials?
This stuff is never personal for me. I'm not against Senator Menendez personally. I mean, I'm not being disingenuous. I'm being completely sincere. You never know where these stories are going. I always try to be as agnostic as possible about them. I'm not jumping up and down and saying it's over for Senator Menendez. I don't know. But I do know there's a lot of material here, and a lot of things are coming together. It's an inherently interesting story, and there are people who are sympathetic to his politics who think he may have done something really outrageous that deserves to be exposed.
I hear you say it's not a hollow boast, and I believe you. But are these elected Democrats or Democratic operatives?
Both.
Okay. Well, we'll be watching very closely on that.
We sure will. Tucker, on some other stories that broke over the weekend, I'm sure you saw the picture of President Obama shooting skeet or something or other. He was definitely shooting a shotgun up there at Camp David. I'm wondering, has the Daily Caller had any fun aggregating some of the Photoshop memes that are out there?
Well, the Daily Caller is actually having a Photoshop contest.
There you go.
As of this morning, that's right. And our plan is to offer, as an engraved Second Amendment commemorative firearm to the winner of that.
Now, wait a minute. Now,
I went in fact ski shooting yesterday and on Saturday, and I have to say, I'm not an expert on it, but though I do it a lot, it does seem a little odd to be pointing a shotgun straight. Hard to know what exactly he'd be shooting at, but maybe he was shooting downhill.
I think he was shooting.
A little phony.
I think he was shooting very late in the arc.
Well, he's holding the gun wrong for one thing.
Yeah.
He's got the butt way too high up his shoulder. I mean, this is clearly a guy who, hasn't held a lot of guns, but has no problem telling the rest of us what kind of gun we need to defend ourselves. I mean, the ignorance around this gun conversation is nauseating to me.
Did you hear all of the reporters? I mean, there were at least a handful of reporters who described the weapon that the president is holding in that picture as a rifle.
Oh, I didn't see that, but it doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, I've heard people, in the press say things like, "Oh, it's a 20-gauge rifle." Right? Or
yeah.
They're morons. They know literally nothing about guns. Now,
but that never stops them from reporting on it.
I know nothing about ice hockey, but you don't see me doing play-by-play during the Stanley Cup. I mean, that's the difference.
Or telling us whether we should be able to be allowed to watch the Stanley Cup, which is even
exactly.
Worse.
And the idea that elected officials can stand up and say, "This is what you need to defend yourself." Really? I mean, my view of this is really simple. Gun laws ought to apply across the board to everybody. So if I only need a 12-gauge shotgun to defend myself, then Nancy Pelosi's family needs only a 12-gauge shotgun to defend itself. And her bodyguards and every other member of Congress's Republican and Democrats' bodyguards should have only a 12-gauge shotgun. Why are we creating a two-tiered system in which people who live at federal expense, employees of executive, judicial, or any of the three branches, get bodyguards with high-capacity magazines, and are their families more important than mine?
Right. Well, according to some, yeah, Tucker. And listen, your pal, Senator Harry Reid, who you've been extolling his virtues all morning here, he actually said over the weekend that he hasn't read Senator Feinstein's quote-unquote assault weapons ban yet. What does that tell you about the actual prospects of this thing in the Senate?
It's zero, but I'll tell you what. I mean, the assault weapons ban didn't stop Columbine. It was silly. Nobody thinks it worked. I mean, this high-capacity, there are 150 million high-capacity magazines in circulation. Banning the sale of further ones is going to have no effect. What might happen is universal gun registration, however. And that is scary. I mean, do you want the government to keep track of, if you give a shotgun to your son for Christmas?
Right.
Should you have to ask the government's permission to do that?
Yeah, and as Wayne LaPierre said over the weekend, they say they're not going to make a big all-encompassing registry, but they also said Obamacare wasn't a tax. Once it's in, they'll do it
until they needed it to be a tax.
Background check, that is gun registration. Sorry.
Yeah.
All right.
Hey, Tucker, always good to have you.
Always
Thanks
a
so much
pleasure.
for joining us. You have a good
Got me
week.
worked up, guys. Thanks.
You guys are you're tearing it up over there at the Daily Caller.